Hi, I'm Kyle Lawrence with Gigantic Studios, and I'm here with the cinematographer for the Outlaw Johnny Black, Keith Smith.
Yes.
How are you
Hey
doing?
guys, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Awesome.
Good.
So I was just reading your filmography, and I had to stop.
Yeah.
It was way too long.
I know.
Over 120 films behind the lens: Natural Born Killers, Three Kings,
Yeah.
Point Blank, Undercover Brother 2, Any Given Sunday. You're truly an auteur filmmaker.
That's right.
How long have you been working with cameras and cinematography?
I've been shooting for about 25 years now. Maybe a little long, actually. I'm maybe dating myself. I've been shooting for almost 25 plus years.
Okay.
And I started out as a news photographer shooting in New Orleans. I shot news for maybe 4 years, and then I applied to film school, AFI.
Okay.
Got accepted, and I was in school for 2 years, and then I hooked up with Bob Richardson and Oliver Stone. Worked as a second AC, and did a little bit of operating with Bob actually, and since then I've been shooting for the last maybe 12 years my own films. I've shot a lot of short films and some stuff from independent films, a lot of TV stuff more than theatrical.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're known for your attention to detail, capturing
Yes.
stunning images, and your love of the craft.
Yeah.
How did it feel landing the DP spot on this epic 1970s blaxploitation style Western?
Got it. This is something completely different for me. It's doing a Western, and I'm very excited about it. I mean, like you said, I'm a big prep guy. Like I love prepping and being as authentic as I can be. Right. Something like this in the period we're shooting in, there wasn't electricity, so that's a big challenge for me, is to try to light as authentic as I can with candles and kerosene lanterns and campfires and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's a big sort of shift for me. I've done a lot of urban comedies, a lot of urban dramas. I've done some romantic pieces, if you will, but this is different in that sense, whatever. So a lot of research that goes into it. For me, technically, I plan on shooting a lot of warm light, like a lot of firelight, a lot of interior light, a lot of interior warm light, if you will. Pretty much motivated by candles and kerosene lanterns, like I said. So it's a big challenge, but I think that through my prep, I've been working with the set decorator to find some lanterns and some other period lighting sources, if you will. And we've also been talking to my gaffer about being able to hide some bulbs and some actual movie lamps, movie bulbs that I can hide and put them on dimmers and flicker boxes and stuff to make them dim, if you will.
Right.
One thing I'm researching right now that I'm kind of going on the wormhole with is trying to find a way to have a candle, like a aluminum candle that I can hide a bulb inside of it. And put a reflector in it and have it, sitting it on tables and stuff, so it aims toward the actors, and it just sort of flickers. And so, and then putting an actual flame on top of that cylindrical, whatever we come up with. And I've seen it done before, but it's pretty natural what I plan on doing with it.
That's awesome. I'm excited to spot
it's
those.
Cool. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, so don't tell anybody how I did it.
I won't.
Yeah.
So, have you worked in this genre before?
No. To Westerns?
Yes.
No, first time. First
Okay.
time. I worked on a show called Son of the Morning Star. I was a film student at the time. We shot behind the scenes on it, and it was a General Custer piece, period piece, and it was amazing. It was my first time on a movie set, but ever just to watch how they approached it, if you will. It was like camping in a way, because it was a lot of out in the. We shot it in Montana. Or they shot it in Montana, and it was out on the plains, and it was just, man, the amount of the bivouacs and the campfires they were cooking on. We had some reenactors that literally cooked on set or lived on set.
That's pretty cool.
And yeah, it was amazing. I mean, you come on set, man, it was like you stepped into time zone, time warp, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So this is my first time doing this, but I have a little bit of experience, just sort of seeing it, if you will. I've never shot necessarily, but I've sort of, being a student in cinematography, you go on set and you watch and you pick up different things, whether lights or what kind of lights they're using and stuff like that. So I'm planning on pulling in all of that stuff to deliver, this genre, if you will. Okay. But this is exciting for me. I got the call about this show from some friends of mine, Donovan and Alton and Keith Shaw was the first to be on the show. And it's like, man, I just perked right up. I'm excited to do something like this and make it as like I said, as authentic as possible. Right. Make it as natural as I can. Just sort of don't see my hand in it, if you will. I talked about hiding bulbs and stuff like that, and campfire, and using natural lighting techniques, whatever. But just so that it doesn't look like I did too much.
Right. Yeah. I know it's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah. I'm hoping so. Yeah.
So, what excites you most about capturing this film?
what excites me most about crafting this film is just like I said, it's just making it as real as I can. You know, I mean, that's one of the things I truly pride myself on. You started the interview by saying like I am a stickler of detail.
Yes.
Like making it as real as I can. So how do I incorporate that into this period? You know? I've been researching a lot of films. I researched Magnificent Seven, Hateful Eight, Buck and the Preacher, and some Hostel, the movie Hostel with I'm not sure the actor's name, whatever, but just researching those films and looking at them and just seeing the techniques that they're using, if you will. A lot of one of the challenges for me is to, like I said, to go into these spaces and there was no electrical light, you know, even in day interior. You know, how do I do that? Like my plan is to bring a lot of sunlight in and you know, just pieces of light just hitting randomly, if you will. The beauty of it is that as a cinematographer, one of the things we do is cheap light, you know, like I don't have to be I don't have to honor a window. If a window's there, I can bring the light from wherever I want to bring it, right?
Right.
So that's one of the things for me that this movie kind of frees me up in that sense that I don't have to be as on point with where the light's coming from. Mm-hmm. I can bring light from anywhere because I don't have to, you know, we don't have to be true to whatever windows off camera, if you will, that I can bring light in to expose the faces like I want to expose them. Okay. But the one thing for me that I'm researching too is usually in a blaxploitation comedy, if you will. I mean, this is not hard slapstick comedy, but you want to have the film opened up as you can in terms of exposure, in terms of contrast, if you will. Right. But I do at the time period. I mean, there are things where you walk into some of these saloons and some of these churches and stuff back then, it was pretty dark. Yeah. And there was pieces of sunlight there, and your eyes came in and you're adjusted for it. The challenge for me on this is going to be the fact that I'm going to try to create that, you know, that dark, moody look, if you will, but I have to respect the comedy and open things up a little bit in terms of exposure. So that's the one thing. It's going to be a fine line to play in. How do I deliver the authentic, contrasty, moody interiors, but still have it not looking like a high drama like Magnificent Seven. Right. So I've been pulling some images from those shows to show the directing, show the art department, and some of my gaffer and my lighting team, but having to explain to them this is, you know, a representation of where I want to go, but I can't go that deep. I can't go that heavy. I got to keep things light for the story.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. That's the fun part.
Okay, so now you've worked with Michael Jai White before. How was that experience?
Great. Good question. Mike and I we went several times, but the most recent time was a movie called Undercover Brother 2.
Nice.
It was directed by another director, but Michael was great on that set because he's a stickler to detail like I am. Right. He wants to make it as best it can be. He doesn't settle for anything. There's no compromise. Mm-hmm. He wants to deliver the best product he can as an actor, as a director, or as a producer, whatever his role is, right? So in that sense, you know, we were, he was just like attention to detail like I was. We were shooting a stunt scene, and just in terms of coverage, how do we shoot a wide shot, you know, medium shot, two shots, singles, ECUs. Mm-hmm. So how do you attack that? And Mike was right there. I mean, he really knew the plan of attack. And we're shooting the stunt scene, and I was on camera, and Mike was off camera, you know, right next to camera to make his entrance and stuff like that. And he would look at me and I'd nod, yeah, now it's time to go in, whatever. He just understood execution, if you will. Okay. So I think that in that sense, I'm excited to work with Mike because he understands coverage, he understands camera, he understands blocking, mm-hmm. you know, especially as a stunt guy. Mike has done a lot of stunts before. He understands how to use the camera to hide punches and whatever. So I just think that it's going to be a great experience just in terms of his experience and his attention to detail. You know? Nice. Yeah.
You guys think alike too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, truly. I mean, it was like we were on set and Mike would like respecting the director that we work with, but he would, you know, in terms of camera, he would turn to me and say, "Keith, what are you thinking? What we're looking? You know, what lens you have on? Mm-hmm. You know, he's that involved." So
awesome.
It makes it a lot better to work with him as an actor and as a director. That he's going to be in front of the camera and working behind it. That I hope there's a trust factor that we have from just having the experience we've had in the past.
Okay. Nice. So I've been hearing a lot about some of the exterior locations you're shooting at. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
As a cinematographer, how challenging is it to capture wide open spaces and natural environments versus more controlled environments like sound stages and sets?
Got it. Good question. I guess there's two parts to that question. I'll start with the wide open spaces first. One of the biggest challenges is that you're relying on sunlight,
Mm-hmm.
and you're relying on the weather, obviously, in terms of where the sun is, number one, and then also if it's overcast or sunny day.
Mm-hmm.
Huge challenge.
Yeah.
But the one thing that's interesting for me from shooting as much as I've shot in the exteriors is the fact that there's a lot you can get away with, in terms of the direction of light, if you will. Like you and I would probably, some filmmakers that are astute would pay attention to where the nose shadow is and where the light is, just behind or in front, whatever. Mm-hmm. There's in the exterior sequences, I can turn act a little bit and cheat them to match whatever I'm doing. Like if I'm shooting your coverage, mm-hmm. and you have a nose shadow going across your face, and then you shoot mine, and the sun is kind of moved around. So I can position both of us and turn it so I can match as best I can what I saw on you, if you will, right?
Right.
So that's the biggest challenge. And then the challenge is that am I telling on myself by the background changing? If I rotate you and rotate me to sort of keep the sun where I want to keep it, whatever. The other thing is the fact that if the sun goes in and out behind the clouds, you're constantly chasing that. So you're constantly bringing in big lights with diffusion to sort of like help out. If the sun goes in, I can sort of add a big light to kind of mimic it, if you will. Then there's color, the quality of or the color of the light. If it's late evening, it's warm. If it's early, middle of the day, it's cooler. Mm-hmm. So just those kind of things that you're just sort of paying attention to is the challenge for interior spaces.
Okay.
Once you get inside, and then the challenge then is the fact that, that ambient light that's coming in, like you lose a lot of ambient light, if the sun is bouncing off the ground or bouncing off a building next to your window, that's a lot of ambient that's coming in, right? So you have to pay attention to if you lose it, when it comes back. If I had it on your coverage, I didn't have it on mine. That's the fun part, though, Like you get into a situation when you walk in, and the light is where you want, it's perfect, right? And then you start shooting, and then, I'm watching and see when I go into coverage, because we shoot them at different times, what the sun is doing now. And if you'll have to match it, or can I match it a little bit, and then also rely on what can happen in post when I start grading the film. Oh, okay. I can sort of color things up and add a little more light, but I can't go too far. So you're just constantly playing that game,
That's great. That's a lot to think about.
It truly is. I mean, some people don't realize the exterior lighting is a bit tougher than lighting in a controlled environment. Mm-hmm. Because once I set my lights in a controlled environment, just like in here, I mean, they're going to be here. There's nothing going to change. Right. But in the interior or the exterior setting, those little things change like that. And if you're not paying attention, you can get into post and you're having to fix it, and then you can't quite fix it because there's only so much you can do. Right. Yeah. So that's the biggest challenge with shooting the exterior. But the beauty of it is the fact that I'm telling you, it's like God's light is amazing, right? So you get this beautiful sunlight, and it's got the right amount of haze or diffusion, and I can never create that, right, inside or anywhere. So you just it's a give and take,
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So back in the 70s, many of those epic westerns were captured on 35 millimeter film. Yeah. Cameras were strapped to helicopters and big techno cranes. Yeah. How does the gear differ today with all the new technology you have at your disposal?
Sure. One of the big differences for me is obviously back then, I was doing some research on this, is researching fucking The Preacher and a couple other films that were the time period, were shot on film. And I come from film. I came in the last little bit of film when film was just going out. We were switching over to digital. Mm-hmm. And so the biggest thing for me was just color rendition. Like, I mean, you would be surprised. Like, I'm looking at your jeans and your shirt and your skin tone. It's just so accurate. If I see it, I'm going to get it, right?
Right.
And shooting digital, there's a little bit of color shift because you're trying to, I won't get too technical, but the chip is trying to reproduce the colors that you see. Oh, okay. And it's all false color, if you will. There's engineers that decide, well, skin tone is going to be this much red, this much orange, this much yellow, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And so with film, there was no digital or electronic processing that rendered the color, if you will. It was just chemical, right? So it was just like as old as like when film was first invented in the 1900s, that you would, what you saw is what you got. Right. So that's one of the biggest challenges for me, is just to sort of have to be as accurate as I can be in terms of what I see. And the colors were a bit more saturated, so colors were a bit deeper. Like the things were a bit fuller in terms of color rendition, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so these cameras, you can get it, but you got to wait to post to get it. You can sort of add it, and then you got to be careful. A good colors can deliver what's accurate, but that's one of the challenges, is that in digital, you have to sort of play with it. You have to work a lot harder to reproduce it.
Right.
Whereas when they were shooting the films in the 70s, they were just, you point the camera and this is what it was.
Right.
So,
what you see is what you get.
Exactly. Yeah. And in terms of lighting, other things in terms of lighting, they were using a lot of hard light, a lot of instruments that weren't, we have a lot of digital lights that have a lot of diffusion frames already built into the unit, if you will. And back then they were using hard light and they would put diffusion that was at the time and whatever. So the films back then were better color and a little bit sharper in terms of the lighting across the faces and, just in the environment. Mm-hmm. And so my challenge is to reproduce that by using, filters, color filters on the lenses and diffusion filters on the lenses and diffusion filters on the units to sort of make it as authentic as I can to match whatever. And that's one of my challenges. I really want to try to get that pretty as accurate as I can in terms of color. So that's one thing I'm going to be working with the designer, wardrobe designer, and makeup to sort of say, well, why don't we add a little more color in the faces or add a little more color in the wardrobe.
Okay.
So in terms of the area work that was done back when, I've done some of that stuff too. Shot some images, some stuff out of a helicopter where we shot. I shot a film in New Orleans called Woman Thought Loose, and we shot some aerial sequence, if you will. Right? And I remember it so vividly. We took the door of a helicopter, and I got strapped in, and I got the film camera at the time.
Oh no!
Yeah, and we're shooting, and I have doors off, and I'm pretty much hanging out the helicopter with my feet on the rudder, the landing.
Oh no!
Yeah. And you're just shaking the whole time, So it was you're trying to talk to the pilot with the headset on. You got the eyepiece up, and you're trying to tell him, can I go another pass, or can you get it lower? Can you tack around a little bit, if you will? So just in that sense, it was a bit tougher to do aerials back when. This is like 15 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And now there's a lot of drone work that you can do the same shots with that are much smoother, and in some cases, you can. I remember there are limitations on a helicopter how high you can go. Mm-hmm. The drone, I think there's a ceiling for the drones too, but it's much higher than helicopters will go because we would start to lose the air quality was there up there, whatever. So, but it's a whole different game now, shooting aerial work then and now. Mm-hmm. I think it's much better now. Obviously, I love this look that a lot of shows are doing when they get high up enough that they can just look straight down and it looks like a map.
Yeah.
You can see the streets, you can see the houses, and it's everything. You can see the geography, the lay of the land, if you will, like how the streets are made or whatever. And I love that kind of. It's a different way to kind of sell an area where you on cranes and stuff you would only be able to get so high, and you couldn't necessarily get on top of yourself because you start seeing the crane, the base of the crane, if you will.
Okay.
So in that sense, the drones are just opening a whole new way of looking at cinema. Mm-hmm. Seeing it in a different way now. So I'm all about that now, especially with there's some bigger drones they're making now that can fly heavy and heavy cameras. Like even the camera we're shooting, which is an Alexa Mini, it's a smaller, it's about the size of half of a bread box, if you will. And so these drones can pick up those cameras now, whereas before, when they first came out, they weren't able to. So it's just that technology is getting better and better.
And there's no safety risk.
Exactly. You don't have to hang out your hard time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love the look of old movies shot on film, especially Westerns. The colors and textures are so vivid and gritty, especially when you can watch them in theater. Truly larger than life. Yeah. How important is it to you to capture those looks again for Outlaw Johnny Black?
Very important. And we talked about that a little bit, but that's the thing, like it's being as authentic as it can. Yeah. I don't know. I think one thing for me, I think a big thing with cinematography and cinema in general is the fact that I'm trying to get to a place where I don't get an audience. I don't want an audience to see my movie or see the movie. I want them to feel it, obviously. Okay. And so you sort of pull back on the, I have to know the technical, but then my job is to let the technical fade away, and then the story comes out. The heart of the story comes out, and so that's one thing I want to do on this film. This film is interesting because it's a revenge story, and so what does it feel like if you're a kid and you see your dad killed, and you have this drive to sort of revenge his death, if you will. Right. What does it feel like in terms of lenses, in terms of color, in terms of camera movement? And this movie tracks that very well in terms of the bad guys versus the good guys, versus the guy who wants revenge, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so you play with things like, like I said, lens choices. If you compress the lens, it feels a bit more intense, obviously. If the lens is wider, you don't feel as intense because I'm not seeing all of your expression, if you will. Mm-hmm. Same thing with color. Like like a warmer feel versus a cooler feel makes you feel different. Colors, red makes you feel a little bit agitated versus a cooler or paler blue, if you will. So all of those tools are what's at my hand what's at my hands to make the audience feel the movie and not see it. So that's the big thing for me. It's just, I'm doing research now, which is the best time of the filmmaking process for me. It's just planning it all out.
Okay.
Like I will take, like we have a character, I don't know the Sheely, his first name, whatever, but he's like the guy who's trying to take the town from the people who live there, the black people live there, if you will. And so how do I portray him? That's something I think about with the red. That's right, with the reds and the cooler colors, and don't warm him up. Give him the most unflattering light I can.
Yeah.
Whereas for our lead character, I want to give him see the light in his eyes, and those kind of techniques are things that I can use to sort of to tell the story a little bit better, or a little bit deeper. So I'm all about that. So that's one thing for me that I'm excited about. This story. It tracks very well. This story is we see what happens at the beginning, and then the whole movie we're traveling toward an end, if you will, and a resolution toward the end. So that's kind of what as a cinematographer, you want the audience to sort of feel that. It's not about sort of seeing it and making it as visual as you can. If I can tell the story better by using less light, I will. Or using light that's not the most flattering, I will. It's not always about making a pretty picture. Especially in the Western, it's about making something that's accurate.
I love that.
Yeah.
Nice. So what films were you most inspired by while putting together your vision for the look of Outlaw Johnny Black?
Yeah. Good question. I'm in the process right now of pulling together my films and research for the look of this film, if you will. And so some of the films I've been researching is The Magnificent Seven. It's a Western set in pretty much the time period that we were set in. It's a story about revenge, same type of story. Someone was killed at the beginning of a young couple. Her husband was killed, I think it was, and she hires this outlaw to come in with his group of hombres, if you will, to seek revenge on the guy who killed her boyfriend, her husband, I think it was. So that film for me is huge because it's set in the same time period. There's a saloon, there's a Western town, there's traveling on the open plains, if you will. So that's one of the films I'm looking at a lot. It's a bit slick and a bit stylized for a 1970 blaxploitation film, if you will. So I'm having to pull from that. And another one is also Buck and the Preacher. It's another film that we were referencing, if you will. So kind of marrying the two.
Okay.
The Buck and the Preacher is a bit more how do I say this? It's not as stylized, if you will. Okay. Whereas The Magnificent Seven has got a lot of beauty stuff in it, if you will. And so I'm trying to pull those two together to come up with the look for this film. Like I said, one is it's much deeper in terms of color, much more saturated. The contrast is deeper. It's much more cinematic. A lot of beauty stuff in it, if you will, right? Whereas Buck and the Preacher was a lot raw. It was a raw film in terms of its approach, in terms of its look. Much simpler. They didn't have the cranes and drones and steady cams and stuff. So just sort of marrying the two together to deliver this film. So those are two that I'm researching a lot, is the Magnificent Seven and Buck and the Preacher.
Nice. Would you recommend any of them for fans to watch before Outlaw comes out?
I recommend Buck and the Preacher.
Okay.
I think it's kind of that's kind of what I'm leaning to mostly, and it's not a beautiful film, if you will, but it's pretty accurate in terms of the time period, in terms of what we want to do here. So I think it's a great film. I hadn't seen it before. I started this film. I saw it like maybe a week ago, and it's like I said, it's a bit cruder in terms of its execution, but it's a great story and it fits what we're doing. So I think that would be a good one to reference.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk fight scenes.
Yeah.
Michael Jai White is the baddest man around when it comes to legit fight scenes in movies.
Yeah.
How do you approach shooting high-level fight choreography that matches his level of expertise in martial arts? Yeah.
Mike and I have worked together on some films where he's done some stunts. He came in as a stunt coordinator one film. He was in this film, Undercover Brother. There was some huge fight sequence that he had, whatever. And so for me, it's like, I think in shooting fight sequence, you want to be able to sort of tell the story of the fight. They're so fast, like the fight scene happens really, really fast, right? So you want to slow it down a bit. in terms of what you see, in terms of how you see it. So in other words, like you can have a fight scene that has like, a couple of like several punches and some they roll on the ground and then they end up and they go across the table and out a window. Like you want to see all that. You don't want it to blur together, if you will. So in terms of shooting it, you want to piece it out, if you will. So you want to get the proper coverage and put the camera in the best spot, multiple sizes so that you can sort of speed it up if you need to, or slow it down if you need to. That makes sense. So you want to sort of make sure you cover it. So you got all the pieces are sold and you don't just let it all become this one blur of energy, if you will. Right. So another technique we use is just is slow motion, like, high speed, if you will. And digital is much easier because it's just a setting, if you will, on the camera. But you slow the punches down so you can really see them develop and see them being executed, if you will. So that's one thing that one technique that I plan on using is to use that to be able to see the fight, if you will, and tell the story of the fight, if you will. Mm-hmm. One other thing that's interesting in terms of fight sequence is hiding the punches, if you will. So there's different. Mike is amazing at this. Whatever. There's one thing we did on Undercover Brother that he was able to suggest where to put the camera based on the kick that he may do or based on the punch that he may do, so that we can, he can't really punch anybody, so just to sell the punch, if you will. So I would sort of put the camera behind his shoulder, and a lot of it's done handheld. So I'd be behind him and I'd reach around just enough to see the punch kind of develop and still be able to hide that it's not a contact from both sides, from the side of the person who's delivering the punch and the person that's supposed to be receiving it. Right. So just those kind of techniques, and Mike is just brilliant at that, being able to, I mean, he's done a lot more of these type of moves than I've done. And there's a lot of techniques in terms of kicks and punches and falling across a table, being hit with a chair, those kind of things. So I'm excited to work with him and just picking up some techniques from him.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So can we expect the same level of action his fans enjoy in his other movies?
I would think so, yeah. There's some pretty amazing, there's like two or three big fight sequences. One is like about, it's the whole town is pretty much fighting.
Oh, yeah.
It's all kind of, people there's a fight that takes place in the town center. There's two fights in the town center. We're shooting in a town called Cheyenne and a town called Hope Springs, and both are like 7-page fight sequences, if you will. There is like I said, like there's there's the Petulant Five, his group of good guys, if you will, and they're being introduced into the film, and so they're all fighting in this end sequence. And I think Mike was telling me that he wants them all to be choreographed doing the same thing, like the same 5 or 6 punches and kicks, if you will, but they're doing them at different times. So that's something he wants the audience to see, that if they pick up on it or not, but it's an homage to stunt fighting, if you will. That these are all the roundhouse kick and this overhand punch or whatever, that they're all doing it, but they're doing it at different times, and see if the audience can pick up on it.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I think it's brilliant to do that. I think it's kind of, like I said, it pays homage to stunt fights, that these are the 5 punches that we do all the time, but let's see if you can pick up on them.
Awesome. I'm sure he's hit someone before, though.
Yeah.
Right?
I've seen you kick someone before. I have. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Keith, for giving me a glimpse into the vision for Outlaw Johnny Black. I'm going to corner you again on set and try to steal some of that awesome footage to share with the Outlaw fans, so watch out.
Please.
I'm excited to see what you and Michael have in store. Thank you so much for coming by.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Awesome.